The empty seat in the Great Space Academy. Thousands of cadets trained every day. The academy was not only for humans. It welcomed many different species from across the stars. The halls were full of voices, deep alien growls, soft clicks, and human laughter all mixing together. It was a place of learning, but also a place of silent judgment. Among all the cadets sat one girl. She was different. Every day in the main hall she sat at the long metal table. The food in front of her was simple: ration cubes, glowing soup, alien bread. Yet no one ever joined her. The chair beside her was always empty. It was not by accident. At first, new cadets would look around for a place to sit. They would see the open chair. Their eyes would light up. Finally, a space in the crowded hall. But the moment an older student saw them, they would shake their heads quickly. A whisper would travel across the table. "Don't sit there." Not beside her. And so every day the seat stayed empty. The girl kept her eyes low. She ate slowly, carefully. She tried not to hear the whispers. She tried not to see the stares. But she always knew. She always felt the heavy silence around her. Her name was Lyra. She was not fully human and not fully alien. Her skin carried faint, glowing lines that pulsed softly, as if light lived inside her veins. Her eyes were too bright, too sharp. Some cadets said she looked like a machine pretending to be alive. Others said she was cursed. Once a brave cadet had sat beside her. He lasted one day. That night, strange things happened in the simulator. His ship controls froze. His engine caught fire in practice mode. By morning, he was in the med bay. Everyone whispered it was because he sat next to Lyra. From that day on, no one tried again. The empty seat became a warning. A silent rule. If you wanted safety, you stayed away. But rules like this are dangerous. They are born not from truth, but from fear. And fear is the most powerful chain of all. Lyra never fought the rumor. She never defended herself. What was the use? No one would believe her. She told herself it was better this way. Better to be invisible. Better to eat alone than to be hated to her face. Yet deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Why? Why must I be alone?" Every day she dreamed of someone who would not care about the whispers. Someone who would sit, just sit, and make the silence break. But dreams were fragile. They faded when the academy bell rang, when the drills began, when the instructors barked commands. That night, as Lyra lay on her bunk, she stared at the ceiling. The dorm lights hummed softly. Around her, cadets whispered stories and laughed together. She turned away. She had no stories to share. The next morning, nothing seemed different. The hall was loud as always. Cadets rushed for food, carrying trays, calling to friends. Lyra walked in quietly, holding her tray close. She sat in her usual place. The chair beside her waited, cold and empty. She had learned not to hope anymore, but then something changed. The hall doors opened again. A human pilot stepped inside. His uniform was new, fresh, without a single mark. He walked with calm steps, scanning the room. His face was unreadable. No smile, no frown. His eyes were steady, like someone who had seen too much but still chose silence. The other cadets noticed him at once. Whispers started again. "That's the new one. The pilot from Earth." He moved through the hall slowly. Every table was full. Cadets shifting, expecting him to choose a place. And then, his eyes fell on the empty seat. The whispers grew sharp. "No, not there. He doesn't know. He shouldn't," but he didn't hesitate. Without a word, without even looking at the others, he walked over. His boots clicked against the metal floor. The sound echoed in the silent moment. Lyra froze. She felt her chest tighten. Her hands gripped the edge of her tray. She wanted to warn him, to speak, to say, "Don't. You don't understand." But before she could move, the human set his tray down. And then, he sat. The hall went dead silent. Forks paused midair. Soup spoons hung frozen. Every eye turned toward them. Lyra could not breathe. The human pilot picked up his fork. Calmly, quietly, he began to eat. He said nothing. He did not even look at her, but his presence filled the air like a storm waiting to break. For the first time, the empty seat was no longer empty, and that was the beginning of everything, the silent human pilot. The hall stayed silent after the human sat down. It was the kind of silence that pressed on the ears, heavy and unnatural. Hundreds of cadets stared, waiting for something strange to happen. They expected alarms, sparks, maybe even an accident to strike. But nothing happened. The human simply lifted his fork, cut into his food, and began to eat. His movements were steady, calm, almost too normal. He chewed slowly, swallowed, and reached for the glowing drink on his tray. Not once did he glance at Lyra. Not once did he acknowledge the shocked eyes around them. For the other cadets, it was unthinkable. For Lyra, it was impossible. She could feel her pulse hammering in her throat. For years, that seat had been a shadow, a curse, a warning. Now someone had filled it, without fear, without question. She wanted to speak, to demand why, but the words died in her chest. Instead, she watched him. The human pilot was different from the others she had seen. His uniform was crisp, his boots shining as if he had polished them by hand. His short dark hair was neatly kept, and his eyes, when they flickered up for just a moment, were deep and sharp, like someone who carried secrets he would never tell. Whispers crawled through the hall. Doesn't he know? He's new. No one warned him. He's finished. Just wait. The pilot didn't seem to hear. Or maybe he simply didn't care. Minutes passed, and slowly the hall's noise returned. Forks clattered again. Conversations resumed, though quieter, as if everyone was still listening for disaster. But the disaster never came. When the pilot stood to leave, the room's eyes followed him. He carried his tray to the recycler, placed it down, and walked out. No stumble, no strange accident. He was untouched. Lyra sat frozen long after he left. Her food had gone cold. Her thoughts spun in circles. Why? Why would he sit there? Did he not know? Or did he choose to ignore it? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Instructors shouted commands. Cadets ran drills in the hangar, racing into their cockpits. Engines roared as simulated battles lit up the screens. But Lyra could not focus. Her mind kept returning to that single act. By nightfall, the whispers had spread across the academy like fire. In the training yard, in the dorm halls, even in the classrooms, cadets muttered about the new human pilot. Some said he was reckless. Others believed he was testing fate. A few whispered something more dangerous. Maybe the curse was a lie all along. Lyra overheard it all. She stayed quiet as always, but inside she felt something stir. A small spark. Hope or fear, she could not tell. The next morning came quickly. As the cadets poured into the mess hall again, all eyes turned toward her table. The empty seat was waiting, cold as always. Lyra held her tray tighter, bracing herself. The doors opened. The human pilot walked in. Again, the hall hushed. Again, he moved with steady steps, scanning the room. Every cadet watched, breath held. Would he do it again? Or had yesterday been a mistake? He reached her table. Without hesitation, he placed his tray down. The sound of metal against metal rang out like thunder. Then he sat. Whispers exploded around the hall. He did it again. He's insane. No one survives 2 days. But once more, nothing happened. He ate in silence. He did not look at her. He did not speak. His calmness was unshaken like stone. Lyra finally dared to glance at him. Her voice trembled inside her throat. Should she ask? Should she thank him? Should she warn him? She could not decide. She only watched. For 2 days, the human pilot had broken the unspoken rule. For 2 days, he had ignored fear, and still he was untouched. The silence between them was strange. Heavy but not empty. It felt like something unsaid was hanging in the air. She wanted to break it, but she was afraid of what his answer might be. When the meal ended, he stood again, and once again he left without a word. This time, Lyra's hands trembled. Not from fear, but from something else. A thought. A dangerous, impossible thought. What if he is different? What if he is not afraid of me? That night, as the academy lights dimmed and the stars glowed beyond the high glass windows, Lyra could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the last 2 days. The way he walked. The way he ignored the whispers. The way he sat without hesitation. Who was he? What did he want? Her chest ached with questions. She turned on her side, eyes wide. The dorm was quiet now. Cadets slept soundly, their breath steady. Only she was awake, burning with curiosity. She whispered into the dark, though no one could hear. Why me? Why my seat? There was no answer. Only silence. But in that silence, something had changed. The empty seat was no longer just a curse. It was a mystery. A puzzle that demanded to be solved. And deep inside, for the first time, Lyra wanted to know the truth. Strange rumors. The academy was alive with whispers. They spread faster than fire, faster than light. The story of the human pilot sitting beside Lyra was now on every tongue. Some cadets laughed nervously. "He must not know the story," they said. Others shook their heads. "No, he knows. He's testing her. Testing all of us." And a few lowered their voices, almost afraid to speak. What if the curse was never real? What if we were wrong? The rumor twisted and grew with each telling. By the end of the day, the new pilot had become a figure of legend. Some called him foolish, some called him brave. But everyone agreed on one thing: he was different. Lyra walked through the halls with all eyes on her. It had always been this way, but now the stares were sharper, heavier. Before, people only avoided her. Now they were watching, waiting, judging. She could almost hear their thoughts. Why him? Why her? What is happening? She kept her head down, but inside her mind was a storm. The human had sat beside her not once but twice. He had not fallen. He had not burned. He had not screamed in the med bay. He was untouched. She did not know if she felt relief or fear. At night in the dorm, the rumors grew even louder. A young cadet whispered across the bunks. "They say he is protected by Earth's machines. Hidden shields in his uniform." Another said, "No, he's not protected. He's dangerous. He sat there because he wants to break her. He wants to test her powers." A third voice hissed, "You don't get it. Maybe he's just like her. Maybe he's not all human." Lyra turned away, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. She wanted to cover her ears, but she could not. The voices always found a way in. Still, one thought repeated in her heart: why? Why me? The next morning, the whispers followed her again into the mess hall. The cadets leaned close, watching. The chair beside her was no longer just an empty seat. It was a stage, a test, and once more the human pilot came. He did not hurry. He did not falter. He placed his tray down with calm hands. He sat, the room tensed. Every eye locked on him. The air grew tight, thick with fear, and again, nothing happened. No alarms. No accidents. No curse. The cadets began to whisper louder now, unable to contain themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others stared at him with awe. Lyra sat stiff, her heart pounding in her chest. This time, she dared to speak. Her voice was soft, shaky, but it broke the silence between them. Why? The pilot did not look up. He did not pause. He lifted his fork, ate another bite, and swallowed before answering. Why not? 2 words. That was all. Lyra stared at him. She wanted more, but he gave her nothing. His calmness was like a wall. Strong, steady, impossible to climb. The rest of the hall buzzed like an electric current. Cadets leaned close, whispering guesses. He doesn't believe in the curse. He's mocking her. He knows something we don't. By the end of the meal, the rumors had doubled in strength. Some cadets now feared him. Others admired him. A few even thought of sitting near him, near her, but none dared. Not yet. Later, in the training hall, the rumors followed them still. Instructors barked orders. Cadets ran drills in the simulators, but every time Lyra passed, heads turned. Every time the human pilot walked by, whispers rose like shadows. During combat simulation, Lyra was assigned to a squad. She stepped into her cockpit, hands trembling on the controls. Her squad mates muttered as they saw her name on their screen. Great. She's with us. We're doomed. But then they saw the pilot's name too. He was placed in the same squad. Whispers filled the channel. She's cursed. He's reckless. They'll drag us down. The simulation began. The enemy swarmed. Ships fired across the dark virtual sky. Lyra struggled to keep focus. Her ship spun hard, her shields cracked under fire, and then his voice came through the comms, calm, sharp, controlled. Left flank now. She obeyed before thinking. Her ship veered. The enemy shot missed by inches. Again his voice. Boost thrusters. Cut across my wing, she followed. Together their ships moved like one. He covered her blind spot. She shielded his back. In moments they had broken the enemy line. The squad fell silent, shocked. By the end of the drill, their squad had scored the highest. Higher than the veterans. Higher than anyone expected. When the simulation ended, the cadets pulled off their helmets in stunned silence. Some looked at Lyra with wide eyes, as if seeing her for the first time. Others stared at the pilot, whispering even louder now. How did they do that? Maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's power. No, maybe it's him. Lyra's chest rose and fell fast. She turned to the pilot, still in disbelief. He met her gaze for the first time, just briefly. His eyes were calm, steady, and then he said nothing. The rumors only grew stronger that night. Now it was no longer just about her. Now the whispers spoke of them. Together, the first test, the rumors had not died. They had grown like roots in every corner of the academy. By now everyone knew the story. The cursed girl and the silent human who sat beside her. Some cadets mocked, some doubted, and some secretly feared. But one truth was clear. If the academy wanted to test them, it would not wait long. The announcement came the next morning. All cadets, prepare for the first test, the voice of Commander Vey boomed across the hall. It was deep and sharp, the kind of voice that carried no kindness. This will decide your rank for the next cycle. Fail and you will remain at the bottom. Succeed and you may climb. The mess hall went silent. The first test was not just a drill, it was survival training. It pushed cadets into extreme simulations, near-death missions that felt too real. Ships could break, oxygen could fail, enemies could swarm. Injuries were common. Lyra's stomach tightened. She had faced many tests before. She had always been alone, always struggling, always marked as a failure before she even began. This time she feared nothing would be different. But when the squad names were called, her chest froze. Squad 7, Lyra Keln. Human pilot Cale Arden. The hall buzzed with whispers. Her name and his together. Again. Lyra's heart pounded as she walked to the hangar. The large chamber roared with the sound of engines and boots. Cadets strapped into their suits. Instructors watched from the high glass deck above. The test would not be easy. The simulation began with a flash of white. Suddenly, they were inside the black void of space. Stars stretched around them, cold and endless. A red warning pulsed on the screen. Mission: defend the convoy. Enemy ships incoming. The squad shifted nervously. Many were already whispering on the comms, "She'll drag us down. He's reckless. We'll lose because of them." Lyra's throat tightened. She gripped her controls. And then, his voice. Calm. Steady. Formation Delta. Follow my lead. It was the first time he had spoken more than a few words. His tone carried no fear. Only command. The squad hesitated, but the enemy ships were already closing in. Laser fire streaked across the dark. Lyra's instincts screamed to move. She darted left, but his voice came again. Not that way. Cut across. Trust me. She obeyed. Her ship swung hard, barely escaping a blast. The enemy who had locked on her tail was suddenly exposed. Cale's ship fired, striking it down in a burst of light. The comms went silent for a moment. Shocked. Again, he ordered. Push forward. Lyra, cover my wing, she obeyed without thinking. Her ship slid beside his. Together they moved like two halves of one blade. Every strike, every turn, every shield. They matched each other as if they had trained for years. The rest of the squad struggled to keep up. Cadets gasped as the two cut through enemies with sharp precision. She's not failing. No, they're leading us. They're actually winning. The battle grew harder. Dozens of enemy fighters surrounded them. The convoy ships trembled under fire. The squad panicked. Their formation broke. Cale's voice cut through the chaos. Stay calm. Hold the line. Lyra, on me, she answered with action, no words. Just trust. Their ships spun together, crossing paths, creating a deadly trap. Enemy after enemy fell. The squad rallied behind them, following their lead. Fear turned to focus. Doubt turned to belief. For the first time, Lyra did not feel cursed. She felt powerful. She felt seen. Her ship surged forward. Cale's followed close. Together, they pushed the enemy back until the last fighter exploded in silence. The mission ended. The stars faded. The black void dissolved. They were back in the hangar, their ships cooling, their helmets fogged with breath. The comms were filled with silence. Heavy, disbelieving silence, then a single voice whispered, "They won. Squad 7 won." Above the glass deck, Commander Vey watched with sharp eyes. His face gave nothing away, but his tone carried weight when he spoke into the comms. Unexpected, but effective. "Squad 7, top rank." Gasps echoed across the hangar. Cadets stared at them as they stepped out of their cockpits. Some with fear, some with awe. Lyra's legs shook as she pulled off her helmet. Her chest was still racing with adrenaline. She turned toward Cale. He stood tall, calm as ever, his helmet tucked under his arm. For a brief moment, his eyes met hers. Steady, Unshaken? He gave the smallest nod. Nothing more. But for Lyra, it was everything. For years she had been alone. For years she had been cursed. But now, someone had chosen to stand beside her. And together, they had proven everyone wrong. That night, the rumors in the academy changed again. No longer whispers of curses. No longer only fear. Now there was something new. Something dangerous, hope. The secret revealed the academy could not stop talking. The first test had changed everything. Squad 7 had done the impossible. The cursed girl and the silent human had led them to victory. Some cadets called it luck. Others whispered it was skill. But deep down they all knew the truth. Something had shifted. For Lyra, it was more than victory. It was the first time she had felt strong. The first time the weight of the whispers did not crush her. And it was because of him, Kyle, the human pilot. But questions burned inside her. Why had he chosen her? Why sit beside her when no one else dared? Why trust her in the middle of battle? She could not rest until she knew. That night the dorms were quiet. Stars shimmered through the high windows, casting pale light across the bunks. Cadets whispered as they fell asleep, voices soft and heavy with dreams. Lyra sat awake, staring at the ceiling. The question pulsed in her chest, louder than her heartbeat. Finally, she stood. Her bare feet touched the cold floor as she slipped out of the dorm. The academy halls were empty, filled only with the faint hum of machines. She walked slowly, her thoughts racing until she found him. Kale sat alone in the training hangar, a faint glow from the consoles reflecting on his face. He was studying ship schematics, eyes sharp, calm as always. She froze for a moment, her courage trembling. Then she stepped forward. Why? Her voice echoed softly through the hangar. Kyle looked up, silent, his expression unreadable. Why do you sit beside me? She asked again, her words quick, almost desperate. Why do you fight with me? Why do you trust me when no one else does? For a long moment, Kale said nothing. His silence was heavy, the same silence he carried everywhere. She feared he would ignore her, turn away, leave her with no answer. But then he spoke. His voice was calm, low, steady. Because I saw your eyes. Lyra blinked. My eyes? Kale nodded. The first time I walked into the hall, I saw everyone avoiding you. I saw the empty seat, but I also saw your eyes. They were not afraid. They were waiting for someone. Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever noticed. Kyle continued, his gaze steady. You fight harder than anyone here. I could see it in the simulation. You don't give up, even when the odds are against you. That is why I sit beside you. Lyra's breath caught. She wanted to believe him, but a shadow still lingered inside her, the secret she had carried all her life. You don't understand, she whispered. You don't know what I am. Kyle tilted his head. Then tell me. Her throat tightened. For years she had hidden the truth. For years she had lived in silence, letting the whispers write her story. But now, standing before him, she felt the walls inside her cracking. She took a deep breath. I am not like the others. I am not fully human. And I am not fully alien. The words felt heavy as they left her lips. My mother was human. My father, he was not. He was from a race feared across the stars. People say they are monsters, that they should not exist, and I am the child of both worlds. Her glowing veins pulsed brighter as she spoke, as if her body responded to the truth. Her eyes shimmered unnaturally, catching the light. That is why they fear me, she whispered. That is why no one sits beside me. They think I am cursed. Half one thing, half another. A mistake. A danger. Her hands trembled. For a moment she could not look at him. She expected to see the same reaction she always saw. Fear, disgust, judgment. But Kale's expression did not change. His eyes remained calm, steady, unreadable. And? He asked simply. She blinked, startled. And did you not hear me? I am not one of you. I am not one of them. I don't belong anywhere. Kale stood slowly, stepping closer. His shadow fell across her. You belong where you choose to stand, he said, not where others place you. Not where fear chains you. Lyra's breath trembled. She had never heard such words before. You don't care? She asked softly. No, Kale said. I don't care what blood runs in your veins. I care what you do with it. For a long moment, silence filled the hangar. Lyra felt her chest tighten, but this time it was not from fear. It was something else. Something new. For the first time, she felt like she could breathe. But before she could answer, the academy alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the hangar. The calm night shattered into chaos. A sharp voice rang out over the intercom. Alert! Enemy ships detected near the Academy perimeter. All cadets to stations immediately. Lyra's heart raced. She looked at Kale. He was already moving, calm as ever, ready for battle. The time for secrets was over. Now, the real test had begun. The real battle. The alarms screamed across the Academy. Red lights flashed against the metal walls, painting every corridor in warning colors. Cadets poured from their dorms, voices sharp with fear. The steady order of training was gone. Now chaos ruled. Enemy ships incoming. The announcement repeated. All cadets to stations. Defend the Academy at once. Lyra ran beside Kale through the rushing crowd. The floor shook as heavy defense cannons powered up. Outside the tall windows, stars glittered, but among them moved shadows. Dozens of dark shapes, enemy ships, sliding closer with deadly intent. The Academy had been attacked before, but never like this. These were not practice raids. This was war. Cadets panicked. Some shouted orders, some fled to their stations, and some froze where they stood. The fear was thick, almost choking. Lyra's heart raced, but Kale's calmness steadied her. His face was unreadable, his steps sure. He walked like he had done this before, like the storm was only another drill. Stay with me, he said. His voice cut through the noise, sharp and certain. She nodded. In the hangar, cadets scrambled into their ships. The roar of engines filled the air. Instructors shouted, trying to form squads, but no one was listening. The Academy was falling into panic. Lyra climbed into her cockpit, hands trembling. The glass canopy sealed above her. Lights blinked on her control panel. She breathed deep, forcing herself to focus. Kale's voice came through the comms, calm as always. Squad 7, form up now. But only silence answered. Their squad mates had already scattered, lost in fear. No one followed. Squad 7, respond, Kale repeated. Still nothing. They won't come, Lyra whispered. Then it's us, Kale replied. The hangar doors split open. Space rushed in, black, endless, and alive with fire. Enemy ships darted forward, their weapons glowing. The Academy's defenses lit up, but for every enemy destroyed, 2 more appeared. Stay on my wing, Kale ordered. Lyra followed. Their ships burst into the void together, engines blazing. The first wave of enemies charged. Red lasers streaked across the dark. Lyra jerked her controls, her ship spinning hard to avoid fire. Kale's voice guided her, steady as stone. Up 2 degrees, roll, now shoot, she obeyed. Her cannons flared. An enemy ship exploded into sparks. The shock filled her chest. She had struck true. For once, she was not failing. For once, she was part of something greater. Kale's ship darted past hers, cutting down 2 more enemies with precision fire. He moved like a shadow, like a blade slicing the void. She matched his movements, and together they carved a path through the swarm. Convoy ships at the perimeter, Kale reported. They're targeting civilians. Lyra saw them. Large Academy transport ships, heavy and slow, filled with students and workers. Enemy fire rained down on them, ripping shields apart. If they fall, everyone dies, Lyra breathed. Not if we hold, Kyle said. They pushed forward. Enemy fighters swarmed like locusts. Lyra fired until her cannons overheated, her hands slick with sweat. Her shields cracked under blasts, alarms screamed in her cockpit. But Kale's voice was always there. Calm, sharp, guiding. Left. Boost thrusters. Cut across. Hold fire, wait, now. Stay with me, Lyra. Don't break. She obeyed. Always. Together, they shielded the convoy ships, their movements perfectly timed. When her defenses faltered, his ship covered her. When his path narrowed, she cut the enemy off. The comms crackled with stunned voices from other cadets. They're holding the line. 2 ships? Against all that? Impossible. But it was happening. For the first time, the cursed girl was not seen as a weakness. For the first time, her ship was not alone. She and Kale fought as one, and the Academy began to see them differently. Yet the battle was far from over. A massive shadow moved at the edge of the field, the enemy flagship. Its weapons powered up, glowing with deadly light. One blast from that ship could tear through the Academy's shields. Lyra's blood ran cold. We can't fight that. It's too strong. Kale's voice was calm, steady, unbroken. Then we don't fight it. We outthink it, she swallowed hard. How? Follow my lead. His ship broke formation, speeding toward the flagship. Lyra hesitated only a moment before following. Enemy fighters swarmed to block them, but Kale's ship weaved through their fire with impossible skill. Lyra stayed tight on his wing, trusting him even as alarms screamed around her. They dived low, engines burning. The flagship's cannons charged, aiming straight at the Academy. "Now!" Kale shouted. Lyra fired with everything she had. Her cannons tore through the ship's venting ports where the shields were weakest. Kale followed, his missiles striking true. The flagship shook. A massive explosion tore across its side. Its weapons dimmed. Its systems faltered. The Academy roared with cheers over the comms. "They did it. They stopped the flagship. Squad 7. They saved us." Lyra's chest heaved with every breath. Her hands shook, her arms ached, but she smiled for the first time in years. The enemy fleet began to retreat, dragging the wounded flagship with them. The Academy was scarred but alive. The battle was over. As their ships returned to the hangar, the cadets stared in silence. For years they had feared the cursed girl. For years they had avoided her. But now they looked at her with awe. Lyra stepped from her cockpit, her glowing veins still pulsing with adrenaline. She looked at Kale across the hangar. He stood as calm as ever. But this time he gave her more than a nod. "You did well," he said quietly. And for Lyra, those words were more powerful than any victory. The empty seat was no longer empty. The curse was no longer a chain. Together they had turned fear into hope. But deep inside, Lyra knew this battle was only the beginning. A seat filled forever. The Academy was quiet after the battle. The halls that once rang with laughter, gossip, and whispers were now filled with heavy silence. Repair crews worked day and night, welding broken walls, patching holes, and sealing the scars left by the attack. But in every corner, one story remained alive. The cursed girl and the human pilot who had saved them all. Lyra felt the change each time she walked through the halls. Before, cadets would turn their backs, whisper behind her, or step away when she passed. Now their eyes lingered longer. Some even nodded as she walked by. A few whispered her name, not with fear, but with respect. It was strange, unfamiliar. And yet it warmed something deep inside her chest. In the mess hall, the change was even clearer. For years, the seat beside her had been empty, cold, a warning no one dared to break. Now it was filled. Kale sat there every morning, every evening, without fail. At first, the hall would go silent when he did. But slowly, day after day, the silence broke. Other cadets began to sit nearby, just close enough to pretend it was by chance, not choice. Then closer, until finally, the once empty corner of the hall became alive with voices, laughter, and trays clattering on the table. The curse was broken. Lyra sat at the center of it all, still quiet, still unsure if she deserved it. But when she glanced at Kyle, his calm gaze told her what words never could. She was no longer alone. One evening, after the repairs were done and the Academy had settled into uneasy calm, the commander called an assembly. Every cadet gathered in the great hall, their uniforms crisp, their faces expectant. Commander Vey stood tall, his voice deep and steady. "You faced your first real battle. You were tested, and though many of you faltered, the Academy still stands, because of those who chose courage over fear." His sharp eyes swept the crowd. Then they stopped on two figures. Cadet Lyra Keln, Cadet Kale Arden stepped forward. Whispers erupted at once. All eyes turned. Lyra's chest tightened. She had never been called forward before, not for honor. Only for punishment, for warnings, for failure. Her legs felt heavy, but Kale's steady stride pushed her onward. Together they walked to the front. Commander Vey's gaze held no softness, but there was no doubt in his tone when he spoke. "You fought when others froze. You led when others scattered. You saved this Academy." The hall filled with gasps. Cadets leaned forward, their faces lit with awe. Commander Vey continued, his voice sharp as steel. "The empty seat that once stood as a warning is no longer empty. It is now a symbol, a reminder that fear can be broken, and strength can rise from where no one expects it." Lyra's throat burned. Her glowing veins pulsed bright under her skin, as if her body itself was answering the words. "For this," Commander Vey said, "you will both carry new rank, not cursed, not reckless, but leaders." The hall erupted in cheers. For the first time in her life, Lyra was not hiding. She was standing tall, her name spoken not in fear, but in pride. Later that night, when the cadets returned to their dorms and the hall grew quiet again, Lyra and Kale found themselves walking the long corridor together. "Do you believe it now?" Kale asked softly. Lyra turned to him, her voice low. "Believe what?" "That you belong?" Her chest tightened. She thought of the years of silence, of empty seats and cold stares. She thought of the battle, the fire, the moment when they stood together against the flagship. She thought of how the whispers had changed. Slowly, she nodded. "Yes, I believe." Kale gave a small nod in return, the same calm gesture he had given her from the very beginning. They reached the mess hall. It was empty now, the lights dim, the tables silent. Lyra paused at the spot where she had sat alone for so long. The chair beside her no longer felt cold. It was filled, not just by Kale, but by the memory of what they had done. She smiled, faint but true. "Thank you," she whispered. Kyle glanced at her. "For what?" "For sitting down." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence was enough. As they stood there, the academy bells rang softly in the distance. A new cycle was beginning. New challenges would come. More battles, more tests, more enemies waiting beyond the stars. But this time Lyra knew she would not face them alone. The empty seat was gone. Forever. And in its place, a new story had begun.